Mets therapy recap, game 2 in the books. This is part 1 of 2 because I'm at MetLife for Monday Night Football. Probably won't have a voice later, but I'll break down the game in full. Yes, Jets. Huge win by the Mets. Style points for the regular season. Diaz, you got the job done, even if I had a heart attack on New Jersey Transit to get there. Got a big early lead, held on for dear life. Big insurance run in the ninth. And the circle of trust is Russian roulette board as far as I'm concerned. Huge Mets win, headed back to LA. I'll break it down in full after the game. Let's go Mets, and for one night, JETS, baby.
Mets therapy part 2 of 2. Let's recap game 2 of the NLCS in more detail because it's 3:30 in the morning. I just got home from the Meadowlands and I don't want to think about the football team that I chose to root for anymore. The New York Mets win 7-3 over the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have evened up this series at 1 apiece. The place to start is where every Mets conversation this season has seemed to start, and it's with their MVP candidate, Francisco Lindor. So I spoke a lot yesterday about getting knocked out in the second round and the difference in baseball than a heavyweight fight, that the fight's over in the fight, but in baseball you have to wait all 9 rounds or 7 rounds to think about whether the challenger that got knocked down will be able to respond in the next fight. Well, talk about dealing the first blow. Lindor, 1 batter in, the Mets have the lead. The Mets have their first run of the series and put to bed this scoreless streak. Who else but Francisco Lindor to set the tone? Of course he did that. I even thought during the day, you know what? The best way to set the tone would be Lindor to lead off with a homer. And lo and behold, he even met that expectation. And then you get the second inning. Clutch hit from Tyrone Taylor. Big hit for him. A double to give them a 2-0 lead. And then, so a lot was made of, at least after the game for what I saw, that Mark Vientos took it personally. That with 2nd and 3rd and 2 out, the Dodgers intentionally walked Lindor to get to him. I do think that was a hint of overthinking by Dave Roberts, and I'd be curious, any of my newfound Dodger friends that are watching this, because I saw what you did to the video recap from last night, where do you think, were you in favor of walking someone to load the bases for Mark Vientos, who has largely been their best hitter these playoffs? And if you go by OPS, largely been one of their best hitters this season. So there's not even setting up the double play if you wanted to do that. There was 2 outs. So, I understand what Lindor is. I questioned it and was like, all right, I better hope this works. And 9 pitches later, Mark Vientos hits a grand slam to make it 6-0. And it ends up being the game-winning hit because of how the game played out. Look, back when Mets therapy was a longer form, my hair is everywhere. I apologize. I don't feel like brushing it. I just went and grabbed a hat to do this, but it's been a long night. Back when Mets therapy was a long form podcast, I had a conversation with someone about what is this Mark Vientos thing? Is he Manny Machado offensively? Is he going to be starting all-star games? Like a silver slugger candidate going forward? Is this a guy that's going to be a 35 home run a year candidate? And I think that this postseason just continues to strengthen that belief in him, that the Mets have, defensively, we'll see what happens, but they have a guy that's going to be in their lineup for the foreseeable future. They one of the prospects popped. That's what you always hope when you call up prospects. I don't know what the ratio is, but it's not 100%, that's for sure. You need a couple of the kids to pop. And Mark Vientos absolutely has, and he continues to be a godsend this season. As far as the rest of the game goes, Francisco Alvarez got to be better. Understand this is your first postseason, and the reality of what he is as a hitter is the thought of just shorten your swing because we just need a single here is so mechanically foreign to a lot of hitters today that you just go with what you have because the ceiling is a home run, and the guy leaves 5 men on base, and the Mets get no runs in 2 of 3 innings after they made it 6-0. That really could have been a knockout blow, and it let the Dodgers hang around. Manaea looked actually like Chris Sale for 5 innings, and then he gives up the Muncy home run. And then the 6th inning happened, and the Dodgers showed up. You want to talk about a champion getting off the mat after what looked like a knockout blow. Walk error, and then Manaea's out of the game. And then look, I want to tell you about my perspective here and what I was doing when the 6th inning happened. So walk error. I obviously went to the Jets game tonight, and to give anybody from out of town some behind the scenes, some New York navigation. For those of us that don't live in the city, we have to take public transit to get to Penn Station if you're going to the Jets game. Because at Penn Station, which is a hub, you transfer from Penn to go to Secaucus. And then Secaucus, you transfer, which takes you to the Meadowlands, which is where MetLife Stadium is. When you're on the Long Island Railroad, which I came from Queens, you have to take a portion of the train that goes underwater to get to Penn Station. And as a result, you lose service completely. I'm not saying like down to 1 bar or 5G or LTE. I'm saying like SOS shows up on your phone. So I was watching the game on my phone because I'm meeting up with my buddies. And Muncy's walk to load the bases when it was 6-3 was the last thing I saw before I lost service for about 15 minutes. And so it wasn't until I got to the Secaucus station when I had service that I actually got to see, it was like the bottom of the 7th by that point, that I actually got to see the double play. And look, Vientos, I just sung his praises. This is also why I understand why Mendoza double switches him out the game in the 9th inning for defense. But Jose Iglesias, the ghost of Chase Utley, has been exercised because he stands in for the double play with a runner barreling down on him, completes the double play, and side retired. Interesting choice by Mendoza to go to Phil Maton there, but I'll judge the process, but I'd be very thankful for the result. I would have went to Stanek. If Garrett was available, I would have went to him. And then, Stanek, you continue to be the captain of the Circle of Trust. He did, 2 base runners did get on at 6-3. And then Diaz had to come in. But look, I said this in my probably barely coherent video from the Meadowlands tonight. Style points it for the regular season. If the Mets had won this game 7-6, they still would have won this game. If the Dodgers mounted a big comeback that came a run short, it would have just been a comeback that came up short. Style points are for the regular season. It's about wins in the postseason. And the Mets got a huge win tonight. And Diaz, while he allowed 2 guys to get on, then struck out the side. It was very similar to his Phillies outing, where he comes in, looks a bit shaky to start, and then gets 3 big outs, 2 of which in this case 3 of which were striking out the side. It was Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez, and Freddie Freeman, like the heart of the Dodgers order. So, look, how this plays out the rest of the series, I think the Mets got a healthy dose in LA of the 2 different versions of the Dodgers. There's one version that we saw in Game 1 that won 98 games and looks dominant and looks like they could win a World Series. And then there's a team I don't think has a lot of pitching left that went to a bullpen game in Game 2 of a playoff series. And if they lose this series, it's going to be because they ran out of pitching. And the Mets just had more quality arms to give them length in games. But we'll see. Game 3 at Citi Field on Wednesday. I think this has a chance to be a very long series, but this Mets home crowd has really put some juice into this team. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'm very excited for at least 3 games at Citi Field this week, as the series is now tied at 1. And look, that's the point. You got the split. You got outscored in these two games, but it doesn't matter because the Dodgers, as I said yesterday, could have won 100-0, and it still would have been one game. The Mets could have won 1-0 today, and would have been a one game, which would have been equal, obviously, to what the Dodgers did. So, that's all I got. I'm very thankful for the New York Mets because they allow me to not think about the New York Jets. So, thank you, guys. Much appreciated. Let's go, Mets. See you for Game 3.